I'd like to call the March meeting of the Edgecombe County Commissioners to order. Ladies and gentlemen, you will see something different on our agenda tonight. We added safety instructions. Ms. Evans, would you please?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everyone. This is, as Mr. Wiggins mentioned, this is something new that we will start doing in each of our meetings. It's a protocol to follow for proper safety precautions. So I just want to provide this following statement. To provide for the safety of those attending this meeting, I want to give the following instructions in case of an emergency. If an emergency arises that prompts us to evacuate, I ask that everyone exit this room in a quick and orderly manner through one of the two doors to your right. Then proceed to the nearest stairwell, directions to which are indicated by exit signs. Once you exit the building, we ask that you safely cross the street to either of our parking lots to be safely away from the building. Our staff will help provide direction and assistance. In the case of a tornado warning, we ask that you exit this room into the hallway, where we will remain until it is safe to exit. Thank you for your attention.
Reverend Hines.
Eternal God, our Father, we give thanks today for just having this month of celebration for the lives of those who live in our county, who serve and do their best to achieve those things that they set out to do. We ask now that you bless our minds and our hearts as we remember Jonathan Felton, who has served and given of himself so unselfishly. Most of all, bless our minds tonight that we might think on the things of this county that makes our county a better place in which to live through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you will observe the chair to my left, and the name tag is draped tonight because we have lost one of our members, our long-term members, who's proudly served this community in excess of 50 years in some public office, either appointed or elected. I've had the honor of probably serving with him the longest on this board. I served with him on the Community College Board. We came on this board together, which was 1996. At that time, I was not the chair. I sat in the whooping seat. I've been honored to sit beside Mr. Felton for probably the past 11 years as the chair, and Mr. Felton served as our vice chair. You know, he would often hunch me and say, I've got to get to the ECU ball game to watch television. But he also would be the one that would hold us up from coaching. Because I would have to say, Mr. Felton, you need to shut up. But it was all in humor with the both of us, and he understood it. And you know, he was the commissioner of District 5. He was a very strong advocate for that district and for the people of this county. I will miss him, and so will this board. While we might appoint somebody in the future, there will be no other. As Jonathan, I always called him Mr. Felton. He always wanted me to call him John. But I just had this habit of calling people Mr. and Mrs., and I could never get away from it. But I will ask at this time, before I get the board to approve this resolution and call the panel, I would just like to ask that we have a moment of silence while following the commission. Amen.
Yes.
We're like, okay, so I better get him on. So I moved a step ahead.
Yes, sir.
I make a motion we approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Questions? All in favor, that be on my vote sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed? But you know, I have to get my thoughts all while I got them.
That's all right. We got your back.
You got them back?
Don't say words.
At this time, You have in your agenda packets, and I will read it. I'm gonna ask, at this time, I'm gonna ask, Mr. Boswell, would you read? Would you read the resolution?
Whereas it is our desire to recognize the accomplishments and service of individuals whose life and work impact this county and its citizens, and whereas Mr. Jonathan Felton dutifully served as Edgecombe County Commissioner from December the 2nd, 1996, until his transition from life on February 21st, 2019, and whereas we acknowledge that his influence extended well past his position as County Commissioner, as he served in several leadership roles, through which he touched the lives of many. And whereas with confidence we proclaim that in the years to come, no one will ever be able to look back over the history of our great county without clearly seeing the part Commissioner Felton played in making it so. So now, therefore, be it resolved by the governing board of the Edgecombe County that we give honor to his life and legacy by declaring February the 21st as Commissioner Jonathan Felton Day, this 4th day of March 2019, Linda Williams, Chairman, Frangie Mungo, Clerk to the Board.
Motion to approve?
So moved.
Question. All in favor, let it be known by the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed? It is declared that February 21st is Commissioner Jonathan Felton Day. Would the family please come forward? First of all, any commissioners like to make any comments at this time?
I just wanted to say I've enjoyed sitting these last 17 years beside John. We talked about singing, sports, and church. And we kind of agreed most of the time on 2 out of the 3. But when he was ill, I got a chance to go and see him. I tried to make sure I sent him a card each month that he was gone to let him know how much I missed him from being sitting beside me. I really appreciate it and love John.
I too appreciate him for who he was, what he meant, when he said what he said. But John was John. And that's what we loved about him. He was just who he was. Bless you.
I too enjoyed serving with Mr. Felton. He was a good man. He was a great commissioner. Most of all, he was a great pirate.
It was indeed. I too enjoyed John. I was his little girl. And he always made it a point of telling me how much he appreciated me and how he supported what I was doing. I think the only thing I ever seen him really mad was when somebody ran against me. And he was like, Elba, we got to do something about that. We can't let nobody. So I knew he loved me as much as I loved him.
I respected him. He was a true lion at heart. So he was an honest man, and I appreciate the time I served with him. I've served with him now for going into 8 years. So thank you.
And on behalf of the board, Mrs. Felton, we just like to present you with this plaque. It's going to put you up in the and we just like to thank the family for allowing him to serve with us. Thank you, sir. Yeah, ma'am.
He wasn't always, but he really did.
And I love him. And we talk.
I know you talk all the time.
We did it as a family like a bacon.
I just say thank you, and he loved all of you. You too. And this lovely lady over there.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Could we get a picture of you all would turn that direction, Mr. Wiggins?
Okay, you too.
Yes.
Then while we, oh, excuse me, Miss Felton. Please come back. Please come back. I missed one thing. Mr. Trey Lewis, please come forward. Please, yeah, please come forward. Mr. Trey Lewis represents the Citizen's Office, and I wanted him to make, he was the mayor of Macclesfield. And go ahead, Mr. Lewis. I'm sorry, I almost got to keep me right. Go ahead.
My name is Trey Lewis, and as you know, I've served as mayor of Macclesfield, a title and honor that Mr. Felton held many years ago. He was a young man when he served in that position. And because he was so young when he served, I always felt that I could call on him and ask him for advice, and he was always willing to give me friendly advice and just talk whenever I needed it. Our community, Macclesfield, Pine Tops, will truly miss Mr. Felton. He was not only a great representative, but he was just a great man. Just a great, godly person. And I always told him that he and Miss Liz were role models for myself and my wife, Danielle. So I'd like to remember today all of the things that he has helped with on this board and his legacy that he has left behind. And thank you, Miss Liz, for being here. And thank you all to the board for always serving alongside with Mr. Felton and working for the betterment of the county. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis represents Senator Lewis. Thank you. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, while we won the loss of Mr. Felton, Edgecombe County has really had a good day today. We had the opportunity to, at the community college, present Mr. Grady Dodd, just give him thanks for the many things that he's done as an aspiring young man, but really a hero in terms of things he's bringing back to our community. He's done well with his life and willing to come back to this community and help others, and we don't see that a lot. We had an opportunity to thank him at the community college, and now we have another opportunity to just thank the Tarboro High School athletic program and his coach. And we have a resolution in the agenda doing that. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
I'm going to ask Ms. Powell to read that resolution.
Whereas the Tarboro High School football team ended their remarkable 2018 undefeated, and whereas on December 15th, 2018, the team won the 1AA state championship with title, and whereas there are hundreds of high school football teams in North Carolina, with only 16 earning the opportunity to play for a championship title. And whereas the Tarboro High School football team has now won 6 state championship titles, and whereas the leadership of the coaching staff and the commitment shown by every player on and off the field bring a great deal of pride to our county. Now therefore be it resolved that official recognition and praise on behalf of the Edgecombe County Board of Commissioners are extended to Coach Jeff Craddock and all of the members of the Tarboro High School football team. And be it further resolved that this resolution has be recorded in the minutes of the Edgecombe County Board of Commissioners and a suitable copy presented to the Tarboro High School football team. Adopted on this 4th day of March 2019, Leonard Wiggins, Chairman, and Frangie Mango, Clerk to the Board.
Mr. Craddock, would you please come forward? Any members, anybody else that you like? Please. When was the first championship?
2009 for me.
That means I've had done this a number of times. That's over half of all of you.
all of the citizens of this county, okay, we just want to present you for the Tarboro High School and the team this resolution. And just thank you so much for what you all of you are doing for the young people of this community. You are our role models, and as a result, we're gonna have a lot of role models in the years to come. Thank you so much. Go ahead, any comments from him?
Yeah, you know me, I gotta introduce my people, without these great group of guys right here, it's only half of them. Tarboro football wouldn't be anything what it is. I am blessed to coach this program, blessed to be part of this community. We take a lot of pride in going out there and instilling that into our kids that, listen, you're not just doing this because of you, you're not doing it because of just the school, but you're doing it for our community, Tarboro. And it's something I think they take a lot of pride in. And none of that would be going on without the great leadership that these guys provide behind the scenes. So I'd like them to go ahead and introduce who they are and what they do.
I'm Ricky Bam, I'm offense coordinator. Wayne Cherry, offense coordinator.
Kenneth Cox, offensive line.
Steve Barnett, offensive line, defensive line.
Andrew Harding, defense coordinator.
So we had 4 offensive guys. Coach Hardy, you must coach alone. You're
He does defensive line.
But he got 2 jobs.
Oh, absolutely. Some of
Does he
you got
get paid
3.
twice?
No! All right, thank you guys. Appreciate it. Thank you.
I'll let you take a seat.
All right, so for item C, as our scheduled appointment, we have Mr. Art Bradley here tonight, who's our Cooperative Extension Director. He and some of his team are gonna come and talk about the 4-H program, as well as the upcoming livestock show and sale. Brad?
Yes, sir. Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
Hope you all are doing well tonight. Appreciate the opportunity to be back among you again. I want to introduce one other part of our program, our 4-H program, with one of the biggest events that we have during the year is our 4-H livestock show and sale. Before we get to that, I do want to acknowledge what Commissioner Felton, the support he did for the farming community and also for the youth of the county. He always had a big smile when he was out there and mingling with the youth at the livestock show, so we really will miss that. I'm going to turn it over to Tanya Heath. She's our 4-H agent for Edgecombe County.
Good evening. I have the pleasure of introducing our spokespeople for tonight. We have first Macy Moore, then we'll have Jada Smith. These 2 girls are members of our newest club, our 4-H Angels for Life Club, and then we'll follow that up with Jeffrey Bradley, who's a member of several clubs in our county, one being shooting sports, wildlife, forestry, and the list can probably go on from there. But I'm going to let them do their speaking now, so we'll start with Macy. Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
First, I would like to say that I never thought that I would show such an exotic animal like a lamb. Well, exotic in my world. My parents and close friends thought I was insane when I first pitched the idea to them, but I was determined to try something new. It was in late October when I first got to see what a lamb looked like. The temperature was freezing and I didn't know if I could stand being out in the cold weather to care for my lamb, but I sucked it up and went on to do what I had to do. Having to care for an animal that was not your ordinary animal was a bit frustrating at times. Having to manage my school schedule and taking care of a lamb, being out in the cold and having patience with an animal not being familiar with you was hard, but it took dedication. With the knowledge and help from Miss Tanya and Miss Misty and more, I persevered on to show and sale day. Not knowing what that day consists of, I felt myself getting overwhelmed by the fact that I was like the rookie in my category. But I was also helped through that process with people in my category. Without them, I probably would have had a meltdown. Show and sell day went on, and even though I didn't place, I went home with a go-getter award. I can say if I was more prepared and well experienced that I would have placed, but it was a great opportunity anyhow. Thank you.
manager, and I am responsible for one ewe, which is a female lamb, and her name is Annie. I like 4-H because I get to work with animals, and I get to learn body parts. And this year I'll be competing as a junior because last year I was a clover butt. And one of the challenging things that I can say is to get in contact with my lamb because I live in Rocky Mount and she lives in Tarboro. So it is very hard for me to get in contact with my lamb, but I try the hardest I can do. And I learned that I have to have dedication, I have to have passion, and I have to be responsible for what I do with that lamb because of the life of that lamb is in my hands. And thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Jeffrey Bradley. I'm a 14-year-old Edgecombe County 4-H'er. I'm here today to introduce you, well, more so to invite you to our 82nd annual livestock show and sale. This year's activity will be held on April 2nd and 3rd at the Livestock Arena on Kingsborough Road. We'll have 4-H'ers from 3 different counties, Halifax, Nash, and Edgecombe County. We'll have 48 Edgecombe 4-H'ers showing their projects they've been working on since December for some of them, and they will include swine, sheep, goats, and steers. I've been showing since I was 5 years old. That would be clover butt. Most of these years, I've been showing sheep. One year, I was able to keep a female sheep for breeding, and with that land, I was able to raise 2 baby lambs to take to the state show and sale at the state fair. I've also raised hogs for 2 or 3 years. I think it was 3. I showed them at the state, county, and showmanship circuit. I have learned many different talents and skills through 4-H, but raising livestock has probably been one of the most challenging and experienceful times. It's one of the best things I've done. We appreciate all of the help you have provided 4-H, and we look forward to seeing you there.
I got a question. Are you related to a gentleman named Art Rap?
Yes, sir. He's my father.
Wow.
Okay.
We wonder why he knew so much about land.
Well, I guess I can understand you having knowledge on lambs, but it's good to see our African American youth involved in this program. You know, I think oftentimes I would look at some of the brochures and I don't see us in them. So I'm encouraged that you two young ladies continue, because I think it's, you know, I see it as a leadership training program. All of you, including you, Mr. Brady, when you here, and when you get here, you bring a different knowledge than many of us have brought. I don't know how to do nothing but eat lamb and just started doing that. I eat hogs. But it's wonderful, and to see that you and the others are assisting these 2 young ladies and getting them familiar with this kind of program is very encouraging. Thank you, Mr. Brad. And thank you, sir. Go ahead.
Any questions?
I'll get to it if I know what to ask. Go ahead.
All right, thank y'all so much.
Thank you. Thank all of you. Any comments from any of the committee?
Look forward to seeing them.
At this time, public petitions. Is there anybody here to speak? Please come forward, ma'am, state your name and address.
Phyllis Mueller, 1106 Cypress Street, Tarboro. I was just here today, I just was concerned, I'd seen a lot of things on Facebook about the allocation of the budget for the Sheriff's Department, and I was just hoping to ask you all to please consider allocating funds for them to get a raise in light of the fact that all the other surrounding counties pay more than what our Sheriff's Department pays. It's just a concern to me that the quality people that we have will go and work in other counties if they don't receive a raise here.
Thank you for your comments.
That's it.
Thank you for your comments,
Please
ma'am.
consider it.
We will consider that budget time.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anybody else here to speak?
Louis Dancer II, 127 Midway Lane, Tarboro, North Carolina, P.O. Box 1391, Pine Top, North Carolina. Stay 7 miles out of Tarboro, 3 miles out of Pine Top, like you know, stand. But I just want to echo what the lady just said about the Edgecombe County Sheriff's Department. I was reading the paper this week, and where they do more than just act as sheriff deputies. They was in the water saving a person's life. They act as rescue and many other things. And like I said previously, they go to different counties. They're called to different counties, Nash and even further than that. We know when they went out for the flood, and some of them got flooded in, couldn't get back. And then my last thing, I want to commend Michael Angels for all the work they do and getting involved in the 4-H, and also the 4-H allowing them to participate. And I echo what you said also. Thank you.
Is there anybody else here to speak? Hearing none, we move on to other business. Consideration of budget amendments, anything to be brought to our attention?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman, happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Is there a motion to approve? Questions? All in favor, let it be known by the voting side, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, disapproved. Consideration of service request to award service work to retired Lieutenant Ronald Bentley. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Questions? All in favor, let it be known by the voting side, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, it is approved. Number C, Mr. Evans.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. At your December meeting, you approved change order number 2 for the infrastructure contract at Kingsborough Industrial Park. That was for an additional water interconnection between an existing 8-inch and a new 16-inch water line that was not called for in the original contract. Since then, it has been determined that that addition is not needed. Therefore, this change order will remove that from the contract and decrease the contract price by $28,946.16. I recommend that you approve change order number 3 with TA Loving Company.
Motion.
So moved.
Second. Question. All in favor, let it be known by the voting side, aye. All opposed? Hearing none, it is approved. Number D.
Item D is regarding a change order for engineering at Kingsborough. As you know, we're working on developing infrastructure onto Kingsborough Industrial Park that includes water and sewer extensions. This comes as being paid for with funding from Golden Leaf Foundation and the North Carolina Department of Commerce. You recently approved an additional grant of $540,000 to include infrastructure to the Corning site. The Wooten Company is currently under contract for engineering on this project. With the additional work for Corning, their contract needs to be amended. Therefore, included for your consideration is amendment number 2, which will add $73,267.15 for engineering and construction administration services for a total not to exceed contract of $914,667.15. I do want to note that this addition to the engineer contract is covered with the grant funds as well. I recommend the approval of amendment number 2 to the contract with the Wooten Company.
Motion. Second. Question. All in favor, let it be known by the voting side, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, it is approved. E, consideration of health department fee change.
Yes, sir, and I noted in my memo that these are fee changes. Actually, these would be fee additions for these 3 items in the health department. There are not currently fees to cover this. You'll see the proposed fee for each of the 3 services, a pool reinspection fee, change of use, flow increase of expansion to an existing system, and a water resample. And as you know, the health department regularly reviews their fee schedule to see when such changes are needed to be made. And also want to note that this does come with a favorable recommendation from the Human Services Board.
Motion? Second? Any questions? All in favor, let it be known by the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, it is approved. Next.
Item F is amendment to the contract with the auditing firm. The county currently has Carr Riggs and Ingram under contract to audit our accounts. Due to delays in receiving reports necessary to complete the audit, it was not completed within the time frame expressed in the contract. Therefore, an amendment is needed to extend the contracted time for completion to March 31st. Also, you will remember from previous discussions, there are new requirements for audits such as ours, which add to the number of programs and documents to be reviewed, and subsequently the time and effort to do it. We were aware of some of those changes at the outset of this contract, but it was difficult to determine the time and cost it would add at the time of the original execution of the contract. Therefore, there is also included this amendment to increase the fee to $125,000. I recommend that you approve the amendment to the audit contract as provided.
I'm going to ask you a question before we get the motion. Go ahead.
I want to find out, was it our fault that they didn't get what was necessary, or?
Primarily, the delay is a report. It is an actuarial report on what is called OPEB, or other post-employment benefits. We actually have a separate firm that reviews that for us, and they do this annually for us. And for whatever reason, it took them much longer to provide that report to us and the auditor than it has in the past, and the audit cannot be completed until they review that, or until they receive that.
Any other questions?
I have a question. Because of that one report, it increased our cost by $56,000.
No, sir. As you see, I mentioned that there were other requirements in the audit, for the audit, and every year the federal government comes out with updates on what is to be audited when an audit is done, such as ours. You'll probably remember that there is now a requirement for even more programs in federally funded departments, like primarily the Department of Social Services, that have to be reviewed more so than they've had in the past. They have to spend a lot more time in reviewing hundreds of more documents than they've ever had in the past. This is the first year for this particular change. We were expecting it to be some increase in the audit contract, but we really had no idea at the time as to how much it would be.
And we didn't know these had to be done when we engaged this firm this year?
We did, but as I mentioned, we didn't. It was difficult to tell how long it would take for them to do these additional requirements.
Now, you said it's a separate accounting firm that's doing it. Yes. It's a report that we didn't get.
We didn't get it timely as we normally do.
Is that a separate contract?
Yes.
What is the cost of that contract?
I don't remember. 4,000? 5,000.
So a 4,000 late contract costs us another $56,000.
Well, not just that, but those other things that I just mentioned, those changes to the audit requirement.
This is strong. I believe we've got to swallow it because we've got to have the audit.
It's an 80% increase.
Yeah, this is tough as it relates to, we've not done any negotiating.
Actually, when we sat down to talk with it and this information they provided, they actually feel like it's more that based on the number of hours that they had to spend, but they are capping it at 125.
And are they sure they can get it done by March 31st?
Yes, we can.
Well, not our contract this year. Whether they get it done in time or not, we should have no additional fees to this.
That's correct.
Any other comments from the board?
The only question I had was what the C can answer. How does they know it's gonna cost us $56,000?
Do we have an itemization of what that $50,000 costs?
They have a little bit more detail, and I brought that with me, but certainly they will be here to present the final audit in April, and I can have them to discuss that.
The budget committee had this information? Y'all didn't have it?
We just got it in the packet.
You just got it in the packet.
I guess my hope would be that maybe if they have to do this again, that they find out there's not as much time as, because they're shooting in the dark to me.
That's right, and we believe so.
And we're gonna pay for the dark.
Sir?
We're gonna pay for the dark. Whatever they're shooting at is gonna be over.
Why don't we do not to exceed? And they might not do this kind of hours. I'm asking you.
Oh, you mean future contracts?
This one, this amendment.
Is this just an estimate or they're?
Oh, no,
shooting?
this is the final amendment. Yes, sir, this will be the final amendment that we'll bring to you.
But if they use less hours, it won't be any less of a fee. We're gonna pay the $125,000 irregardless.
Well, not necessarily, they will bill accordingly.
They will bill.
Yes, sir.
So it will, in essence, be a not to exceed.
That's correct.
Can that be our language?
Sure.
You can modify this.
Not to exceed. And that give us some room, I think, in terms of if there are less hours, so that give you some opportunities to if it's more hours, it's theirs, okay? But if it's less, not to exceed, I think it'd give us that, wouldn't you?
Yes,
You all right with that?
Yes, sir.
Motion not to exceed? Can I get a
So
motion?
moved.
Second.
Questions? All in favor, let it be known by the vote sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, it is approved. Appointments, go ahead, Mr. Evans, we got a list here, don't we?
Yes, sir. You'll remember at your, I believe it was your last board meeting, you approved the creation of an ad hoc committee that would serve to help create awareness for the 2020 census, to engage people to participate, to inform citizens as to how they can participate, with a goal of having the highest possible participation rate that we can. In that committee structure that you approved, you'll see is listed in your packet. There are a number of different either agencies or sectors to be represented. I did not in your packet note any names to be recommended, other than I will say that there are three in here, that the aging population, social services, it's two, I'm sorry, aging population and social services, that I'd like for you to consider the appointment of our Office on Aging Director, and then for social services, our interim DSS director or her designee, I would say, for social services. The rest of those, if you know of someone that you would like to recommend tonight, or you can consider this, and we can hold it off until your next meeting to fill these positions.
Is there a name for that? That is,
Sorry.
Ms. Coley,
Deborah Coley.
there's a motion to appoint Ms. Deborah Coley for the
So moved.
second. Question, all in favor, let it be known by the vote sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, she is appointed. Ms. Betty Bella, or her designee,
Or her designee, yes, sir.
is there a motion?
So moved.
Second, questions? All in favor, let it be known by the vote sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, they are appointed. And from the others, we're expected to fill them probably by the next meeting.
Yes, sir.
And you all think about, if there's anybody, from these different areas that you would like to submit.
I have a comment, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
At my legislative goals meeting this weekend, well, it's one of the sessions that lasted a very long time. They are very concerned about the 2020 census, especially in smaller counties like ours. Because now they're determining that they plan to do most of this online. And so we had a long discussion because broadband is a problem, not only in this county, but several other counties. And we made that known to their offices that, they said about 60% of people actually have access. And so a gentleman got up and said, well, what about the other 40%? Especially our elderly. I made the comment that I'm concerned about my folks who are still missing from 2016 hurricane. So we have really got to make sure that we have a list of people who can really, really do this job, because we're going to have to help people go to the library and other places in order to fill these out. Because until they do it that way, it's going to go 3 rounds before they actually get one in the mail. But we don't think just online is sufficient, and I don't really think it was a good idea for them to really come up with that's going to be their go-to card, because we have too many people who don't have access. So we're going to have to pay a lot of attention. And one state told us that they asked for funds from the state to help with this 2020 count committee, because that's how important it's gonna be because of the lack of progress. So something like that.
And if I could note that, when we met with the representative a month or so ago, because they are going to this online approach, that they will be deploying more census workers to go out in the field who can help folks take devices themselves to help folks to complete the census. So part of this committee will not only be to help to promote it and make people aware, but it's also to help share information with those census workers as to what populations are the most undercounted, what are the most vulnerable for missing the count, so that we can make sure that we get our county canvassed as best as possible.
And two of the most important things to the census for the state of North Carolina, if our numbers are not where they need to be, we could lose seats in the House and the Senate. We could also lose economic development dollars.
Any other comments? Hearing none. Planning board.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Jones not able to be here tonight. She had to leave work early today, not feeling well. But I do want to point out, as you notice in your packet, you do have two recommendations from the planning board for text amendments. The first being the special use permit. Currently, our ordinance says that you may send, for example, a special use permit for a solar energy system to the planning board, but you don't have to. It has always been this board's practice to send those items to the planning board for first review. And so the first recommendation from the board is to amend the text of our Unified Development Ordinance to change that language to say that it would be a requirement for these special use permits to first go to the planning board, and for the planning board to forward a recommendation to this board. And you'll see that there's draft language in the information in your packet.
And I had some conversation with the Evans on this in terms of, I do think it ought to go to the planning board, but as to whether we should not include some language. In other words, if there's a situation that is not timely and is in their requirement, then we've got to follow the ordinance. So, and while we're going to have a public hearing on it, I asked them to consider some language in terms of that might would be some optional language as to whether there was some authority, as to some decision could be made based on a review of that.
So what brings the problem up that we need to make a change? Why would we do this?
Honestly, I'll say as county manager, I didn't realize that it was not a requirement until some of the more recent special use permit applications came through. And one of the applicants questioned, because we were saying you have to take it to the planning board. Of course, they looked in our UDO and saw that it says may and not shall. And so they challenged that. And so since it had been our practice, we felt that we should make it a requirement, or at least to clarify what has been our practice in our ordinance.
And I think we need planning board review. Okay. We need that planning board review, but if we got into a situation as to
it's timing, like you said.
It's
timing.
And I still think that somewhere the language ought to be that the manager would have to exercise some discretion. And I don't know if you want that, okay? Because I don't know if you want it, because I think you're in better shape, to refer to the ordinance. But it would put us in a position where some things might come our way that I think that we might not think that.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Is it not true that the real fact is that the planning board would have a better time of studying what?
And that's why I can agree that it ought to go to it, but I'm just thinking ahead in terms of something. I don't object to what they're recommending, I'm objecting to maybe just the manager without a way out in the ordinance. That's the only thing I would say.
I would,
They need that.
I would not support it as proposed.
Just consider some new language that we might consider at the public hearing.
Sir,
Go
I
ahead.
want to speak for Mr. Peters.
Go ahead, Mr. Peters, you got something?
No, I understand your concern, and I'll be happy to discuss it with Mr. Evans.
I got one question. The only thing I would say is this, that the language of the way it's worded now, even though it may use the word may, doesn't give them the right to tell us whether or not they want it done. It's up to us to decide. So we have it covered one way or the other right
Well,
now.
You have the latitude right now.
Yeah, but, I mean, I think it should go to the planning board, period.
I mean, so we could send it to the planning board as we always have done. It just won't be mandatory. My fear is, like you, Mr. Wiggins said, if we get caught in a situation where timing says it would have to be scheduled with the planning board, and then that has to go through that process and another 30 days, and we never know, it might get caught in something that's 60 or 90 days out that we might could take care of quickly in an economic incentive situation, even after having a review.
That's conversation for staff thought in terms of, potentially might give some options. We don't know what we might get some things in public hearing, but we'll be able to do that at the next meeting. That's correct.
Yes, sir.
Any other comments? Go ahead.
So for that, I just, the recommendation is to call for a public hearing.
Yeah, okay, is there a motion to call for public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Questions? All in favor, let it be known by the vote sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, public hearing is called.
The second item for the recommended text amendment is regarding the particulars of the solar energy system part of our UDO, and even more particular with the requirements for vegetative buffers. That's something that has come up in discussion in the last couple of special use permits that have come before you. The planning board has discussed that. They've reviewed some recommendations that were sent to them. And from that, they have included the changes to the language that you'll see and the information that's been provided. And if you're open to considering that text amendment as well, we ask that you also consider calling for the public hearing for your April 1st meeting.
Motion.
Mr. Chairman, before we
Go
have a
ahead.
motion, I
Go
want to discuss on, I have taken great notice of all these solar farms since we've been dealing with this last few months. And this, the vegetation thing is great, don't get me wrong, but it's so many cases where it's not even growing. That, do you have any latitude about maybe requiring a fence, or is that something we can do? All I'm saying is, do we need to think about something other than vegetative matter? Because vegetative matter, from what I see in the field, doesn't work very well in most cases, even to increase the height of it. I go by a bunch of them where you see scrubs sitting there. And if you come in and replace them and they turn scrubs again, it's, you know what I'm saying. I'm not trying to drive anybody to spend more money than they want to spend, but there may be some circumstances that a fence would be a better solution than vegetative plants. I don't know.
Is not fencing part of it already, plus vegetation?
Fencing, but I'm assuming you
I'm
must
saying
mean
privacy fencing.
privacy
Yeah.
fencing.
I've
You
seen
can-
some
Oh,
with privacy
with the
fencing.
slats.
Yeah, slats. I've seen some with both. There's just no comparison to me. I mean, if I had to live beside one, I wouldn't mind it at all, but I would prefer a fence with trees that don't live, that never grow, that don't reach the height that they're supposed to. You can't demand somebody have a 6-foot tree no matter when you plant it, But it's just something to think about, I guess.
Well, I did have a thought as I read it, and my thoughts were, what kind of enforcement mechanism if they didn't grow?
Well, that's one of the things we discussed.
Right, what kind of enforcement if they didn't grow? What can we do to enforce that? We got to take civil action against them, or what is that? Would that be the case?
And get a fines or penalties.
Well, that's kind of what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, I think that's,
We would
yeah.
have an option to require a fence if it didn't, depending on where they are.
Well, if we had fines and penalties, they could grow to where they might want to put a fence.
Yeah.
The fine might be a fence.
The fine might be a fence. That's a good conversation in terms of, Mr. Peters, look at that.
Yes, sir.
Look at how we can strengthen that ordinance if there's vegetation
that would have some requirements, some enforcement requirements from us in terms of at least the fines and penalties. See, that's a good thought. Because he did strike, I couldn't phrase it exactly like he, but I did have a thought when I read it in terms of how do we enforce this ordinance?
Okay.
And I think civil penalties and the fees and penalties might be the way to do that. Anything, a motion? You gotta get it on?
I'm moving for the public hearing.
Second?
Second.
Questions? All in favor, let it be known by the voting side, aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Hearing none. Would that, if fines and penalties, how would that impact the present, solar farms? Would that be retroactive?
We'll have to look at that.
Have to look at it. Moving on.
The only thing I would point out, you'll see you have a copy of their minutes. They did vote to, had their annual vote on their chair and vice chair, and they did retain Mr. Jonathan Melvin as the chairman and John Smith as the vice chair.
Contracts for review and approval, anything to be brought to our attention?
You'll see is just one contract in there, and it is, the sheriff has bid out the replacement of their security system at the jail. They've been having some issues with it. I also want to point out that to cover the cost of this, there's a previously approved budget amendment where the sheriff moved funds from the canteen services. That's now being outsourced. He's contracted with an outside vendor to provide that service. And those budgeted funds have been moved to capital outlay. And there is sufficient funding in the current budget to cover those costs.
Motion for approval. Question. All in favor, let it be known by the vote of sign, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, hearing none, it is approved. Departmental reports,
After the summer leases.
after lease and releases for review and approval, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Questions? All in favor, let it be known by the vote of sign, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, hearing none, they are approved. Departmental reports, moving down that list,
Yes, sir. Only a couple things I will draw your attention to about answering any question you might have on any of it. Item E, Tax Administration and Board of Equalization Review. You see there's a notice in there from Ms. Teresa Lewis, our tax administrator, that you'll be convening as the Board of Equalization and Review at your April meeting. So just want to give you notice of that. We do have a handbook for you. It's mentioned in that memo from her that we'll give you a copy of before you leave tonight. Also want to point out item G, the risk management report. This is, it's not a new report that we get, but this is the first time I've presented this for you here. One of the things that, we are in the risk management pool for the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners, and every year they review our procedures and how we do things, and they make recommendations for improvements. Part of that oftentimes gives us an opportunity to earn points, and we get some credits or some savings on our premiums for that. And so one of the things that they recommend that we do is this report that I see on a monthly basis, that I present this to you as well. And you'll see that it just talks about different items. This is for fiscal year 2018. Items under liability and property coverage, as well as for workers' compensation coverage. But just wanted you to have that, and I'll be providing you with these reports as they come available, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have on that report.
any questions from the board on any of the departmental reports for review? Any questions?
The only other thing I had was the Mid Lakes. I see it dropped down to just two left.
Yeah.
And are we getting close to the date where we're gonna have to move forward?
We are. I believe the deadline is April 18th, I believe it is.
Sometime in April.
Yeah.
So are we even hearing from these last two at all?
I believe Ms. Pittman has talked to them a couple of times. I'm not sure exactly what the situation is.
Just curious.
Continuing to encourage them.
I think at last conversation, what we told the managers, take care of it. And the staff attorney, okay? I guess next time we hear from them, we want straight. Okay.
I just want to say, I'm glad you got that risk management
Mhm.
and that you've been getting. I don't know if the board knows or not, but I've just been made chair of that risk management.
So
We
won't-
won't make you look bad.
so we won't have no risk. Thank you for your service on that.
And I will just say on behalf of their staff, they are always great to work with. We can call on them at any time. In fact, they will call on us sometimes. They'll come out and visit. They're very helpful. We have a staff person that's designated to be our risk management coordinator, and Ms. Kim Myers, who works very closely with them. Since I've assigned those duties to her, I guess she's been doing that for maybe 2-3 years. We have improved on our reporting numbers and other things, so it's something we're working on a consistent basis.
As you delegate, you get better results.
I'm working.
Okay, you can't do it all.
Can't do it.
You can't do it all, okay? Manager's report.
Happy to answer any questions on any of these that you might have. I do want to draw your attention to first item C, which is the courthouse security committee. Sheriff Atkinson, who through the Sheriff's Association had access to a consultant to come in to do a walkthrough and assessment of the security needs of our courthouse, and then to make some recommendations. I know a couple of you, Mr. Wiggins and Mr. Rubin, participated in that. And so one of the recommendations that they made is to create a courthouse security committee. And that has been done by a joint letter that there is a copy in your agenda packet. Each of those who've signed to this joint letter, each of them will have the opportunity to appoint 2 people to this committee. And this committee will simply work with that consultant to sit down and talk about some of the vulnerabilities and security of the courthouse, what measures we can take to address those, and just to work very hard to make the courthouse, even safer for both the staff who work there as well as the public who are in and out of that building on a regular basis. So just wanted you to be aware of that and have a copy of this joint letter that's been signed.
Since they are my appointments and one of the board members, you want to serve?
I'll serve.
Mr. Williams got one of them, okay? Okay, Mr. Williams, one of them. Anything else?
The other thing I want to mention is update on issues raised regarding solid waste. I know Ms. Boswell had brought some things to our attention at your last meeting. We'll go into as much detail as you like, but I do want to highlight a few of the things that, in response to that, or things we're going to do to address some of those. One of the concerns is about out-of-county residents bringing trash to one of our convenience sites. Obviously, you fund and we collect some fees from our citizens to provide that as a convenience, as a service. And so there are some of our convenience sites that are, I guess, strategically located that makes it easy for folks just across the county line to take advantage of that. And so, we've been aware that we know our site attendants try as best they can to identify those folks and let them know, but it's kind of difficult to do. We started some research and looked into some other counties are using a decal or a tag system where annually decals or tags that can be hung in a person's vehicle or something similar would be distributed to citizens who pay their taxes, and they would use that in their cars, and only those who are displaying a tag or a decal could dump in any of our sites. So that is something that we're exploring. We have talked to at least a couple of other counties who've done a version of this, and we've talked about the challenges and the successes of that. So I want you to know that that is something that we're exploring in more detail, and you'll likely hear something more about that from me when we sit down to talk about the budget. There were some of the issues that were related to concerns from site attendants or employees that seemed to me that really was amount of a lack of communication between them and their supervisor, or maybe some misunderstanding. Mr. Larry Moore, who's our solid waste director, has had a chance to speak with individually all of the site attendants, well, all the employees really, but especially the site attendants who he doesn't get to see as much on a regular basis as some of the other staff. He's given them a chance to voice concerns. He's gotten some, some recommendations, some concerns that he is, giving some attention to. And so he is, he's working on now just to continue to keep that open dialogue with the employees. Also, one of the questions was about signage at our sites. I think some of our sites, it might not be quite as clear as to what goes where in which bin. We take a number of different items. They have to be properly segregated and separated before they're dumped into the proper bin. And so staff is working on getting new signs. In fact, I have in my office now drafts of the signs that we'll be putting out. So we'll be looking at that, finalizing those, and getting those deployed to the site very soon. So those are the three things I wanted to mention about that, but certainly open to answer any questions about anything else.
I guess my only comment on it was that people will give more information to others than they will supervisors, okay? Because they probably feel they're going to be retaliated against if they really give an honest feeling to a supervisor. So therefore, some of this outside information that you get is something that you have to make happen that Mr. Moore might not necessarily have knowledge of, okay? Because that's not going to come to him, okay? You don't tell your supervisor you don't like him. I mean, I'm not saying that's an issue. I'm not saying that's an issue. Because I got to get rid of you. But you just don't tell them those kinds of things. So some of the kinds of comments you might get from Mr. Balls that he gets from others is kind of those judgment decisions you need to make with Mr. Moore in terms of how you're going to solve these issues.
My two biggest concerns, number one, are the decal or whatever we decide on. I hear, and I don't know this, but I hear that that's been pretty successful. And that is the number one problem with everybody. And most of these guys, I know them and they talk to them, but they'll tell me anything, So I hope we can do something, at least make an attempt to do something. The second other issue, and I saw this with my own two eyes after the holidays, I'm assuming there's something we can do on the schedule to take care of the two heaviest days of the year, but it's usually going to be Christmas, I guess, and Thanksgiving as well.
Yes, sir.
So I guess you took a look at that, and maybe
Yes, sir.
some options to help that. It was terrible. I mean, I don't know what we can do, or we should do, or will do, but I just want to make sure that's looked at, because I saw that. I know what they're talking about on that particular issue. Number one priority is people dumping stuff, and us paying for it from out of the county. So certainly there's something I hope we can do in the future to improve it.
And one of the things I mentioned to Mr. Moore and remind myself, I want to say this here, is that I think that, and it has been a success, it seems like, in some other counties, but we just have to prepare ourselves that it will generate a different kind of complaint at that time.
Oh, absolutely, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll generate, I forgot to bring my tag, or, this is a truck I don't normally drive.
Yeah. If you send them back home, they'll bring it
Let me see your
back.
driver's license.
That's up to the site manager, and some people you just get to know them, you know that they're resident. You know that they're residents, But, the other side of that, put my trash on a resident truck. We just stay away around it too,
But you also need to understand that some dangerous foods come to those sites too.
Yeah, and we'll, if they got a conversation, they know what to do.
I'm sure we have residents who go across to our other county lines.
Yeah. Trash.
So we have to be careful what we.
Getting rid of trash is expensive. It is expensive to get rid of trash, and if we're getting rid of others' trash, it costs us. That's the bottom line, So it might be something that, when is retreat?
March 18th.
Will you update us?
Yes.
Okay, update us, okay.
18th, March 18th. And that's recommended.
Never have.
I just have one other question.
No, you ain't been nowhere.
Go ahead.
Manager, the 1764 Association, I read the letter and all about us. Is there anything moving forward on that? I mean, do you feel like they're making some progress in moving forward to go
Yeah, I think one of the best things that they do, and which is their reason for being, is that they are keeping our projects along that corridor in the conversation on the table.
They lobby.
Yeah, it's a tremendous amount of, as y'all know, it's a tremendous amount of competition for, it's a lot of money in highways and road improvements, but it still is limited. It's a lot of competition. So they have done a great job, and I think the fact that both of those have been designated already is quite a step in and of itself. So I think, and we provide minimal funding, but we do provide some funding to that annually.
Which you saying is worth it.
Yes, sir.
There you go.
Anything else on the matter?
No, sir. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Commissioners, anything from commissioners? Anything from the attorney? If not, at this time, ladies and gentlemen, we'll schedule for a closed session to discuss economic development and personnel. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Questions? All in favor, let it be known by the voting sign aye. All opposed? Hearing none, at this time, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be going into closed session. Thank you for coming.